Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to try something a little different. I realize that as much as I am making videos and haul videos and things like that on the channel, I am watching a lot of other things. So my wife, Jessi, is here, and we're going to talk about what we've been watching over the last month. Now, this is the end of March, but so we have a few more days to go here. But we thought we would share with you what we've been watching and kind of talk about each of the shows individually that we've been watching. And I will leave a list of all the shows we've seen in the description below, so if you want to check them out, you can. There are some that are physical media, and then there are others that are just on streaming services. I mentioned before on the channel that we do have a variety of streaming services that we watch quite often. So first of all, Jessi, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Right, so we've been doing this other feature called My Wife Picks a Criterion, which we haven't done in a while, but we plan to do more of those, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to get back to it soon, yeah.
Right, so but we'll talk about what we've been watching. Again, a lot of things that we've been watching I don't really talk too much about on the channel, so we thought we would make this kind of podcast-style discussion of other things we've been seeing. And one of the things we do is we watch a lot of YouTube, right? We definitely watch a lot of YouTube every single day, I have to say. It's a daily thing, usually in the morning or maybe around lunchtime, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, we try to check out as many channels as we can. We have other things we watch other than just movie channels, too. I think just in general, we're not going to name any channels here, but we watch theme park channels or people eating in their car. That's one of the things we like to watch.
Yeah. For
whatever reason. I guess we like to watch those around lunchtime, but there's plenty of those out there. So that takes up a little bit of the day, but I think we're going to start with, we're going to talk maybe a few minutes about each of the shows. And the first show we're going to talk about is Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy, which has been on CNN. And I think over the last month or so, we've watched every single episode. Usually we'll try to catch up on, one or two episodes a week. It's usually on Sunday night. I think the show's over now, but what did you like about that show?
Well, first, I liked that it was a show that we watched kind of in real time. A lot of times we catch a show later, and so we'll binge it, or we'll find episodes on Netflix or Hulu or something. And this was one of the first shows in a long time that we've had a standing weekly appointment to watch, and we're actually really excited about watching that specific show. We would, make sure that everything was done for the night. We had specific snacks we like to have during the show, and got to really kind of interact with it instead of just sitting down and watching a bunch of episodes like maybe we watched before. I really liked getting to know Stanley Tucci in the show as well. Every episode focuses on a different region of Italy, and it was really great to see the food, but I really, really enjoyed seeing how he interacted with the people and his reactions to the dishes and where he was, and some anecdotes about his own life and living in Italy and being Italian and cooking for his family. So it was very cool to get to know him in addition to getting to know Italy.
Yeah, I would agree. He's quite the personality, and I think it just got us more interested in Stanley Tucci and his movies. So Big Night is a movie that's on our list, which is one that he made I think in the 90s he made it, about, I think it was two brothers maybe opening a restaurant. That's all I know about it. But I think we want to see that one, and we want to see, what was the other one he was in? The Devil Wears Prada, was he in that one?
Yeah, he's in The Devil Wears Prada, he's in Easy A, he's in a ton of movies, he's in Hunger Games, and he has a new film coming out soon, that we've been interested in seeing. So it was just interesting how he came back on our radar because he has a new movie with Colin Firth coming out, and then he has this show, and we've been trying to get his cookbook, which is sold out everywhere, it seems like.
Yeah, I like I said, I really liked it. I loved the way it was filmed and showing the different regions of Italy, just making you appreciate things a lot more. Here in the U.S., I think a lot of times we will reach for fast food, more times than not, or maybe not, cook with as much attention and care that there seems to be in other places. Maybe that's just, our impression. But I definitely feel like it was a very relaxing show for us to watch. As you mentioned, we had our favorite snacks. I think we probably wanted to make pasta during the thing because...
Yeah, that was the only downside of watching a show about pasta after 8 o'clock at night. It was, dinner's over and we were just having a snack here or there, and we really just wanted a whole other meal, wanted to get up and make our own pasta.
Yeah, and just the quality of the ingredients. in the various regions of Italy, I thought was very interesting. And just his personality, as we were saying before, he's a very funny guy too. So, and I'm sure this was season 1. So I think there was only 7 or 8 episodes, but maybe they'll do a season 2. I don't know, but I would love to see it.
Yeah, I would too. I think it's also very interesting watching people's reactions to food. I think that's partly why we watch some of that on YouTube. But I did notice over and over again with Stanley Tucci, it was like the food was so good, he was almost angry about it. Like the words people use to describe something really great, you're like, oh dang, this is good. And it's interesting how like the pleasure can like almost get into anger, that you're like so mad that it's so good. Like, how dare you be so tasty?
Yeah, and also the regions that where he was eating this food or preparing this food, the climate has a lot to do with, and I'm sure this is a standard thing too, but the climate had so much to do with the types of food in that particular area, which I was really interested to learn about. So I think this really, this show really got us more interested maybe in cooking. I think we're interested in maybe getting maybe a different quality of pasta. I think we're used to getting, maybe the cheaper pasta, but maybe we splurge once in a while and get a good pasta that we.
Yeah.
So anyway, we really like this show. A lot of the things we're going to be talking about today, we don't have physical media on. This one happened to be on CNN. And a lot of times with these, we were just talking about this today, a lot of times with these streaming shows, who knows if it will ever get a physical media release. But this is definitely one I could rewatch. I feel like it's very rewatchable.
Yeah.
But if you don't have cable, if you don't have CNN as an example, then maybe not able to see the show. But we highly recommend it. And I would just love to see it again. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if CNN participates in any of these like conglomerate streaming services. I think you can get maybe through your cable provider. I think you can watch CNN online, or there may be an option to buy a subscription to CNN online. I'm not completely sure, but I do know that CNN shows sometimes are tricky to find after they've already been on. So right. If you do have CNN as a channel, definitely keep your eye out for Stanley Tucci.
Yep, wonderful show for sure. The next show we're going to talk about, I've made a couple videos on this, and I will make another video on season 3. But we've been watching Twin Peaks: The Return, which is on Showtime. There is a physical media release of this, which I have shown on the channel before. But you know what? I'm absolutely loving season 3. I've heard so many good things. A lot of comments on the videos on the channel too, of people wanting me to see season 3 and getting my reaction to it. I plan to do a whole video on this, but I thought we could talk about it a little bit. To me, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say this is one of the best TV shows, one of my most favorite TV shows, I suppose I should say. And I think we have maybe 6 or 7 episodes left. But I think for the video, as you and I talked about before, I'm planning to kind of make a list of adjectives of all the various reasons I love the show. But what did you think what are you thinking of the show? We still have another 6 episodes to go, but it's already wonderful in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it highlights all the things I liked about Twin Peaks originally. I really fell in love with the characters, and while Twin Peaks, the town is really great, season 3 really highlights the characters themselves in this larger storyline that kind of was maybe a little bit in the background in seasons 1 and 2, but is more in the foreground now, and it's just really great. It's surprising, it's funny. I didn't know what to expect. I think you should go in that way. I don't even know. Just entertain me, David Lynch. I don't, whatever plans you have, I'm open to them. And it's very interesting. Yeah,
it's a roller coaster ride, right? So there's been a few episodes. There's one in particular, but again, I'll talk about this in another video, that you just feel like you got to just hang on and go for the ride. You can't try to figure it out too much. We have definitely some ideas. We're really trying to stay away from kind of the secrets of Twin Peaks videos and extra features and things like that. We just want to experience it for the first time. And, just as you were saying, I love being in the Twin Peaks world. And I feel like with this particular season, The Return, there's not a lot of credits in the beginning, so you don't really know who's going to show up in the show. And I feel like I'm so surprised when I see a character that I know show up in the thing, and you go, I didn't even know. Yeah, and a lot of times it's just randomly, all of a sudden that person is there, and you're like, wow, I didn't even know they were going to do that. I didn't even know they were going to come back 25 years later, right? So we're trying to really stay away from spoilers, and I will definitely have another video to explain, how much I love the show. But, as you were saying, I think with Lynch, you really have to be open to the roller coaster ride. It's a very creative show, as you said, very surprising to see different things. But you and I think we both look forward to it. We want to be in that Twin Peaks world. We were looking at some books this morning as well, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I watched a quick interview with Mark Frost this morning on a show showing the books. So I think it just opens up like a lot of these different worlds and series, a place we want to be, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think another thing that really sticks out to me is that there is some discussion about when to watch Fire Walk with Me. Do you watch it before you watch Twin Peaks, the series? Do you watch it after? And I'll say this, that if you're going into season 3, it doesn't matter when you've watched seasons 1 and 2 and the film, but you need all 3 before you go into season 3.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. Yeah, and some episodes, like I said, you really feel lost. You feel like you're kind of lost. But I think, again, part of Lynch is being okay with being lost a little bit. And trying to figure out the puzzle, and maybe you can go back. Again, I think this is another show that's very rewatchable because there's so many pieces and parts to it that I think it's, very, very interesting there. So anything else we want to say about Twin Peaks, The Return? It's
great. We watch one episode at a time. We don't watch more than one episode in a row. In the beginning, I think, the beginning of the season, we did kind of watch 1 or 2 in a sitting. But now we just watch one at a time, usually 1 per day. That's it. But I think we just want it to last longer, so we're just, taking our time, kind of digesting what's happening, and, I can't wait to see this person, or, oh yeah, that happened, and so I think some distance helps a little bit with this one.
Well, I think we're savoring it, which is something we do with shows, kind of like when you have a favorite food.
Yeah.
We're kind of holding off a little bit on it just so we can enjoy it more and really process it more, but really excited about finishing this one, which I'm sure will take us into next month, so Twin Peaks: The Return on Showtime. And again, I'll link all these shows in the description below here. The next one is streaming on Amazon, but we do have physical media from Mill Creek. This is Mad About You, which is a sitcom from the 90s. And man, we are really enjoying this. I think it took us a while to really get into the show. But once we were into it, we're at the beginning of season 6. There's 7 seasons in the show. And it's a really smart sitcom, I feel like. And it's almost like, we've talked about this before, it's almost like a play. There's so many different characters and so many different celebrities that make appearances. I'm thinking of like Carol Burnett as an example, Carol O'Connor. There's so many. They even did kind of like a laugh-in, mashup, I guess, if you will, where they had kind of some of the people from Laugh-In, the show from the 70s, kind of come in. But there's so many little surprises in the show. I don't know. I think the writing is great. I really enjoy the writing in this particular show, and it really kind of takes them through their whole relationship. So what did you think of the show? Like I said, I really loved it. I really love it.
I think it's really great. I really like seeing the main characters grow in their relationship, in their marriage, bringing up things about, a couple of people who have been together for a while and what that means about growing in terms of their job and their individual identity and their relationship, and what happens in a relationship when maybe you don't water it and pay as much attention to it as you used to, and what does that do to individuals, and what does that do to the relationship overall, and what happens when topics like babies come up, and what happens when parents start to have problems, right? I think in season 5 we get to know more about Jamie and Paul's parents and how they interact and what their adult relationships look like. And I really like the kind of by season 5 and season 6, the kind of like group of characters we're kind of paying attention to. That in the beginning it was more about like their friends, and now it's more about family is playing more of a role as they evolve in their relationship.
Yeah, I feel like we like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like we like shows that are organically funny, not a lot of jokes, maybe, but it's more the situations the characters are in or the personality of the characters, because I know there's a lot of sitcoms on too that just go for the joke every 2 or 3 minutes, but I feel like this one it's almost, like I said earlier, like a play where there are some serious moments, definitely, but then there's some very funny moments as well. And it doesn't try too hard to be either of those. I feel like it does a good job at being just a great written, show. So, I even hesitate, I guess, to call it a sitcom, because I feel like it's even more than that to me anyway.
Yeah, I think it kind of is it's almost like a half an hour drama with some humor.
I was going to say a dramedy is what you would say, right? A dramedy.
Yeah, I mean, because there will be situations that will make you laugh, but they're not situations that are designed just to get a laugh.
Yeah, and there's some very sweet moments in the show, and I just feel like, this is something we talked about a little bit too, is that Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt feel like a real couple to me, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so natural, they're so, you feel like you're watching a married couple, doing things, right? And I feel like that's also when they're interviewed, you feel like that too. We watched the new season. This kind of brought us back to Mad About You because Spectrum, I think, had sponsored a new season of Mad About You coming back years later. And so we ended up going back and watching the whole show from the beginning. And like I said, it really took us, maybe a few stops and starts to get into the show. But once we were into it, we were really in. They really feel like a couple to me.
Yeah, they do. We watched one interview, I think before the new season, talking about the new season when it was coming out. And they shared the story that Helen Hunt likes Diet Coke, but she only likes the first sip out of a new can. And so when Paul Reiser would open a can of Diet Coke, he would save the first sip for her. So he would basically find her to open his can of Coke, and then she would have the first sip, and then she would be done. And that's just a really interesting, detail between two people who aren't married, who just worked together for 7 years, that you wouldn't think that they would still kind of have that rhythm. And I think we also really like it because, to me, it sticks out among other family sitcoms where I really feel like Jamie and Paul care about each other. They love each other. It's not one of those sitcoms for example, we like to watch Everybody Loves Raymond or King of Queens, where they're making fun of each other, right? They highlight the fact that you did something wrong, or, and that becomes, the fight becomes the funny, and that doesn't happen in Mad About You. When they fight, it's serious, and they're making a point of the tension in their relationship instead of them, in Everybody Loves Raymond, Deborah and Raymond will be arguing, the audience will be laughing, and that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, it's really a smart dramedy. I guess we can use dramedy now more frequently, but I really love the show, and I hope they do more. I hope there's another new season. Who knows if there will be or not, but it's one of our favorite shows. We watch it every day. We watch it usually when we're having some dinner. We watch it. And, again, these are things I haven't really spoken about on the channel, but there's a lot of other watching that we're doing along with, films that I may watch on my own or shows that you may watch on your own. These are things we watch together, and we really enjoy it. We really look forward to watching it every night. And I think that's the benefit of having a show that you can, I guess you're not really calling it binge watching, but we are watching it every single day. Whereas if you were to watch in the 90s, you'd have to wait a week, right, for the next episode. So I think there's some benefits in that. But this one's on Amazon Prime. There's a great release from Mill Creek. I wish it would get a Blu-ray release, but who knows if that'll ever happen. The quality on Amazon Prime, as well as the physical media, is not that great. So maybe that's why we didn't kind of bond with it in the beginning. But it's definitely worth it. I think after at least season 1 and 2, I didn't really notice that much anymore. I'm more into the story, but I feel like this one could definitely use a re-release if possible. So, okay, I think we're going to move on here. Did you have anything else to say about Mad About You? No. I think we're good there. Yeah. Okay. The next one we watched on Netflix. We watched this this past week. It's a movie called Pieces of a Woman with Vanessa Kirby, Ellen Burstyn, and Shia LaBeouf. Among others, of course. This is a very serious movie. I know Vanessa Kirby has an Oscar nomination for it. I think it's a brilliant movie, really, really great, but very, very serious. And what did you think of the movie, just initial impressions of it?
I think it was also surprising. We don't typically watch full films at the end of the day during the week. I know that's very specific, but sometimes, you get to the end of the day after dinner and you don't really have 2.5 hours to be patient for a film. And so we just decided to try this one. We had a little extra time and we ended up sitting through the whole thing in one sitting, which was a little surprising and shocking. It's just so well done, especially in the beginning. It doesn't, as we were talking about, it doesn't really feel like there's any cuts or edits. There very well might be. It's just very intricate cinematography, and it's just a story that's told in a very unique way to highlight tragedy that can happen between a couple and how they deal with it, but in a way that's not like other films that talk about the same topic.
Yeah, I mean, this one was, again, very emotional, and Vanessa Kirby is just amazing in it. I hope she gets the Oscar for it. I think she's got a good chance to get the Oscar for it. I like you. I said I like the long takes. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I like also when the camera follows a character from behind, which is kind of maybe more of a foreign film concept, but. I mean, it's not maybe necessarily done as much in U.S. films, at least that I've seen. But I like that. I like that aspect of it. It sort of makes you feel like the camera is a witness to what's happening and following these characters. It's a very in the beginning, you really feel like you're in the room with the characters. I feel like, we're not going to give away any of the plot for it, but it is a very emotional story. I think you even said after the movie that it's really a story about women in a way, right? And kind of generations of women and how they relate to each other, especially with Ellen Burstyn being the mom, right? So, that's something, as you mentioned afterwards, that I hadn't really thought of watching, going through the movie. But it is how, a couple deals with tragedy, how individuals deal with tragedy, how families work together, the dynamic of families, which I think we can all relate to. So,
yeah. And I think it also really highlights this idea that, when a child gets married, this idea that once you're married, you're kind of working on making your own family, and how does your family interact with your original larger family, kind of that generational tension between, being a parent and making decisions for your unit, but then also wanting to have a relationship with your mom, or how your larger family interacts. I think that they did that really well. But yeah, I think it was just, especially since the main character in the beginning is dealing with a pregnancy, about what does it mean to be a woman, and what does that mean for other people, and roles women have in families and with partners and with their job, and how they're viewed in society, and what that means about justice, and all sorts of topics come up, but they're not brought up to be direct and in your face. The film kind of lets you put things together in your own way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, this is another case where I feel like the writing is really good. So Pieces of a Woman, it's on Netflix. Again, Vanessa Kirby nominated for an Oscar for this one. I highly recommend it. Again, a very serious movie. Great. So moving on, and I realized as we were looking at this list, we have a lot of movies about pregnancy and women, which is fine, which I like. But the next one also we really enjoyed. We just finished it. It's a limited series called Expecting Amy on HBO Max, and it basically tracks the pregnancy and birth of Amy Schumer's baby. And wow, this is one of the best miniseries I think I've seen in a long time. I'm sure this came out last year. I think it came out in 2020, but we just hadn't had a chance to see it. And it may be exclusive on HBO Max. I don't know, but this is another one that if it had a physical media release, I would quickly run out and buy it, because I feel like it's a great, portrayal of, what happens with women specifically in pregnancy, especially a difficult pregnancy, which she goes through and describes. It puts together a lot of, home footage, phone footage, along with, real life, things that she's going through. Obviously, Amy Schumer is a famous comedian. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying it, but I was also surprised by this one. Based on the graphics on HBO Max, I thought, and knowing Amy Schumer's work, including her films and her stand-up, I thought it was just going to be kind of like a funny satire kind of show, and that's not what this is at all. If we're in a good way, I'm glad that it was the way it was. It's very real. It's honest. It talks a lot about relationships and how her and her husband, got married, and how they interact as a couple, and Amy's professional career and being a comedian and how that kind of works. And it just gives a really interesting insight into how how she conducts herself in a professional sense, and what really drives her and what she wants to bring to light with her celebrity, instead of just being another show about a rich woman who has a baby.
Yeah, and you probably know from the channel too that I love documentaries, and this is a very honest documentary. Well shot, moves really well. You definitely don't get bored with it. There's a lot of drama in it, which I think is one of the things I like about documentaries or this type of a series. We haven't really talked about this too much either, but you and I watch a lot of reality shows. Sometimes we really get into reality shows, and this is almost like one of those reality shows, but sort of a reality show on steroids, I think, because it's very, high profile celebrity, difficult pregnancy, difficult life, circumstances in many ways, the life of being on the road and what that entails. So I really loved it. I thought it was great. It was really, this is one we definitely savored. We watched 2 episodes yesterday and then 1 today. We said we need to save one for today, because usually after we finish a show like this is one that was, I guess you consider it binge watching it, but it was only 3 episodes. But, we kind of struggle. We kind of fall off a cliff in terms of shows because we can't find something just as good as this one.
Right.
And so if you get a chance to watch this on HBO Max, I would highly recommend it. It's so great. I have so many great things to say about it, and you really have to just experience it. I definitely got a different view of Amy Schumer, who I'm a big fan of anyway as a comedian, but this really gives you a portrait of her life, and what she was going through, obviously, during her pregnancy. Any other thoughts about Expecting Amy?
Yeah, I think that if you're kind of on the fence about her comedy, still give this a try, because she's very serious in this. She's not just a silly, whatever kind of character she plays in a lot of like SNL skits and things that we've seen of her kind of being silly. She's not that silly in real life, and this feels a lot more real. I think it also does a great job of highlighting the length of a pregnancy. Like, we all know, that it's like, oh, it's about 9 months, whatever. But, that's like the majority of a year to be pregnant while your body is constantly changing. And I think she does a really great job of highlighting the beginning, the middle, and the end of her pregnancy. And so I think that if you're interested in that kind of representation, and she's not just a high-profile celebrity who happens to be pregnant. Her whole life changes because she's expecting a baby. So it's, everything I kind of expected when I expected a reality series about a pregnant celebrity. I was very, my opinions were changed because it was a very, very well done show.
Yeah, I would agree. And one final thought on that too. I think it highlights also something that you and I think is very important in a relationship, which is communication. I think there's lots of scenes. I think that was one of the most engaging things about the documentary, is that how the communication is so key in any relationship, whether it's sister relationship, husband and wife, father and daughter, whatever it is, just how important it needs to be, and that we all talk about things. And I think that was highlighted very well, I feel like, in the, Amy and her husband are very self-aware as well, too. So they're able to kind of work through some very difficult moments, I feel like.
Yeah.
So that I really enjoyed about the show. But anyway, Expecting Amy on HBO Max. And, I feel like I need to say this again, but I feel like we know what's happening in terms of moving towards streaming services, but it's going to be a shame when they remove this one potentially, right? They might, who knows if they will, right? And then you have no chance to see it again. So this is one I would, have on physical media. Being a documentary collector, this is one I would like to have in physical media, but who knows if it'll ever happen. So
yeah.
The next one is WandaVision Season 1, which is on Disney Plus, a very different show. We're kind of veering off into some very different shows here a little bit. What did you think about that Season 1? Again, we watched probably 1 episode a week for many weeks.
I think originally we tried it and we were like, I don't really know what's going on. So we waited, I think, maybe 2 more weeks. So we had maybe 2 or 3 episodes to kind of really get into the show and understand. This one was really tricky to avoid on Twitter, so I think at some point we're like, all right, we got to watch it like once a week because we're going to get spoiled.
Yeah.
I thought it was well done. It got a little long for me, but I think it had a good payoff. It really got me excited about watching all the Marvel films again. I don't know, I mean, we haven't really talked about the Marvel universe, but I think when we saw Endgame, and what was before that one? Infinity War?
Infinity War, probably,
like,
yeah.
oh, there's a thing called Infinity Stones, and like, so apparently it just went right over my head. And so I definitely, after seeing this, really want to watch all the films again, which I think is maybe the whole point of the show in some ways. But I really like the kind of the character study and getting into, again, that relationship between Wanda and Vision and what that meant for her. So I think that kind of wrapped up kind of well.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's a little bit of a confusing show, and you sort of have to go on the ride again, right? You have to go on the roller coaster and just be okay with it. I liked the show. I thought it was really good. I think we've watched most of the MCU films, but not in order. I think we're looking forward to maybe doing a rewatch. Let us know in the comments below if you want us to do maybe a rewatch of that. We may do it anyway. We're not really sure yet, but we would probably do it maybe in this format.
Yeah, if you want to hear about us rewatching the films in a podcast style, let us know so we can kind of start this when we start that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this next watch we've been talking about a little bit, we want to do in chronological order, right? Which puts a movie like Captain Marvel up to the front, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, it
which
does,
which we haven't seen yet. So I really liked it. I thought the acting was really well done. The episodes were shorter. We should say too, we watched the last 3 or 4 episodes, I think, all together, which kind of helped because I feel like we lost interest maybe near the end of the show and said we should save some. This was not a savoring thing either. I don't think I think we just wanted to save some so we could maybe finish the show kind of on a roll.
I think we watched the first two back to back. Then we watched it in weekly installments until about the Halloween episode, maybe. And then I'm not sure what we were doing, but we just kind of tabled it for a little while. And then we watched, I think, the last 4, maybe, in a row. And it, like, when I'm saying in a row, it was like in the same day.
Right.
Like so it definitely got its momentum back. It just, I'm glad that we waited to kind of get the whole resolution all at once.
Yeah, I think the payoff took a little bit of time because you weren't really sure what was happening, at least in the beginning or the first couple shows. But by 3 or 4, you kind of have an inkling as to what's happening. But anyway, I liked it. I don't think there's going to be a season 2, right? This is a kind of a one and done season. I don't think anyway. So, but we liked it, right?
Yeah, I think it was a good start to the series of Marvel shows, which is welcome. And I am looking forward to more Marvel films, but it was a nice kind of, little taste while we're waiting for other things.
Right. So this is on Disney Plus. Again, another show that does not have a physical media release. Now, maybe it will. Sometimes these shows do get a physical media release, some point in the future. But for right now, you can only see it on streaming, right? Disney Plus. Right. So that's that one. We've got a few more here. The next one is on HBO, also another streaming service, Painting with John, Season 1. I hope this one gets another season as well, or multiple seasons. But this is a show that focuses on musician, artist, and painter John Lurie, who was in the Lounge Lizards, and also worked with Jim Jarmusch on a few films. And he did a movie. Actually, one of my first Criterions I talked about called Fishing with John, where it was different episodes where he would go fishing with a specific celebrity. I don't think they caught much fish, but it was interesting to watch. And this one is very much the same, but it's very I think we liked watching this show either early morning or later at night or, early evening. And it's a very meditative, contemplative show. He does a lot of the music for the show. He's living on an island in the Caribbean, and a lot of the show is just him with a close-up on a painting that he's working on, or scenes of nature, or him telling some stories. But I loved it. This is one of my, next to Pretend It's a City, this is the next one on my list, Painting with John. What did you think of the show?
I thought it was really great. I have not seen Fishing with John. I did not know anything about John, and he's kind of a curmudgeon-y kind of guy. But I really liked seeing his painting setup. I like to hear what he had to say about things. I like to watch the simple strokes of color and how he added water to make things, kind of bloom. And I liked his natural inspirations for the paintings, his stories. I mean, I don't know that I can remember a lot of them, but some of them are very funny. I also like his kind of satire in that, like, he isn't really all that happy that he's making a show while he's making a show. And so he kind of uses the audience because he's not interviewing anyone, right? We are the person he's having the conversation with, and we don't get to talk back to him. So it's just a very interesting kind of setup.
Yeah, I would agree. And I was just thinking of the time, because they gave him a couple of drones, I think, for the beginning, which he immediately crashed in the beginning of the show, which is kind of funny, makes for kind of a funny opening. So I think he's, very, very much, closer to the end of his life at this point. And I just love his storytelling. His life seems at a slower pace, which I can definitely relate to. And the painting sequences are great. The stories are great. His sense of humor is really good. So I really hope there's a second season. There was only, I think, 6 episodes of this one.
I think so, yeah.
And this is another one we really attempted to savor because we knew that it's, there's only a few episodes. And again, maybe not the most popular show for people to watch because it's a guy painting and telling stories. But this is the kind of show that I can really relate to and is really interesting to me. And just him as an artist, I think, was, he talks about one of the stories he tells is how he got this eel basically for the cover of this record that they were going to make. And that whole story is just very funny, very interesting. A lot of coincidences in the stories, which which is important to him. And so I think immediately after that, I watched Down by Law, which is a Jim Jarmusch movie. And, I'm even thinking about rewatching Fishing with John because it's such a great show, which is also on the Criterion Channel too. But there's, physical media for that. So any final thoughts on Painting with John? I thought it was really good. HBO.
I liked the later episodes because you kind of get to dig into John himself, and he kind of shares a little bit more about his chronic illness. And it just is really interesting that he says that some days, he only has 2 good hours and he would use them to film the show. And I thought it was also interesting. He talks about how he had to transition from music to something else because he didn't have the energy to make music anymore. And I think he maybe makes some music in some way now, but he can't play music like he used to. And so I thought it was really interesting that he happened to pick he tells that story where he gets up in the middle of the night, right? And he goes to his room to paint. And I was just thinking about how it's really interesting that he can get the same kind of feeling and creativity from painting that he did with making music, but it's also a very quiet activity. So if you're someone who maybe doesn't sleep, but also doesn't have a whole lot of energy, the painting kind of fit for him, that it gave him a lot of those outlets, but it also worked in his new life. And then that was the story he told about how he was cooking something in the oven, and the oven was malfunctioning, and I won't give any more details away, but it was just really interesting getting insight into like his life on the island also.
Yeah, I mean, it was very inspirational too. You think about the portrait of an artist. Even though he can't make music, his art has to come out. Himself as an artist needs to come out in some way, no matter what. And I like that idea. That's very inspirational. To think that even if you have an illness, there are other things you could do to kind of give you an outlet as an artist. And anyway, I really like the show a lot and highly recommend it. It's on HBO. I've got a couple more here. One is, I think this is kind of this is one that I can definitely binge watch. This is a show called To Catch a Smuggler, which is on NatGeo. So we've been watching this one live, usually on Saturday nights, but I think there's new shows on Wednesday. And it's basically a show. One of my favorite kinds of shows is where they're. I think there was a show we used to watch called Airline, right? Where it was people arguing about their tickets at the, at the ticket counter when they're waiting for their flight or something like that. sometimes those, for me anyway, these are shows that I can easily watch for 4 or 5 episodes and the time just goes by. This is kind of one of those where it's basically people coming off of international flights and customs and, you know, passport officials, or I guess you don't call them passport officials, but custom officers, passport officials, you know, are looking for drugs and, you know, criminal behavior, basically. And, I mean, I think we watch like 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday night, right? That's usually what we do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think there's a window where like they show the newest episode again, and then they just show random episodes after that, I think. But yeah, it's really entertaining. It has a good pace. They usually follow, I don't remember, was it like HSI or something like that?
Yeah, right.
Homeland Security,
yeah.
To check out like, there's one side where they show the cargo and they like, you know, inspect the cargo, and if they find a lot of drugs of some kind, they will pass it off to HSI, and then they'll go try to like set up the person who ordered the package, and then they'll then another phase of the show is just on the airline security and how they wait for people to get off the flight, and they check passports and check behavior and bags, and then if they suspect that there are drugs being carried, they continue. And it's just a really interesting window into border security. We hear a lot about, you know, the border in the United States right now, but it's mostly about people crossing into the United States. And so it's interesting to see how other things get into the United States, whether it's like fake memorabilia or drugs. And the smugglers are very clever, and they have all these, you know, ideas. And so they try to, you know, the smugglers make these decisions to try and outwit the security people, and then the security people have new tools, and it's very interesting how all of that stuff comes together.
Yeah, and I think the show has one of these techniques too that makes it very addictive. In that, I remember with River Monsters we used to watch all the time too, and it was the same type of thing where something will happen right before the commercial, like they'll open up a suitcase and they'll zoom in, and then they just cut right to commercial, and it's like, I got to see what's in that suitcase. I have to see it. And so I feel like, you know, the show can be sort of addictive in that way, because before you know it, the hour's over, right? Because you're getting these commercial breaks, and you want to see what happens. You want to see how the story ends, and they don't usually end the story till the very, very end. Like usually in the last couple of minutes, they tell you what happened with these folks, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, this is one of those shows that we just put on. We probably could put on a movie or something more interesting, but for Saturday night, when we're trying to kind of, you know, I don't know, relax a little bit. I don't know why this would, you know, is relaxing watching people.
It's right up there with those like true crime murder shows where you're like, I don't know why this is relaxing, but it is.
But somehow it is.
And it is another show that we look forward to when it's on. I think we're kind of, I don't think we'll go completely in this direction, but lately, you know, with WandaVision and some of the other shows we've watched this month, we've kind of been looking forward to a new episode, which is interesting. Like we watched we watched half of Painting with John as a backlog, and then we watched kind of the weekly installments. So it's just interesting that this weekly episodic watching is kind of coming back for us.
Yeah, and I'm even kind of surprised that we've been able to catch new episodes all the time, because I think we turned on last night and we thought we're definitely going to see some repeats, but no repeats. Yeah. We haven't seen any of the repeats, and again, new episodes are coming on, but they're showing like, I think, different, you know, seasons of it, so I guess we haven't caught all of them, but there will come a time when we will start seeing more repeats. And
and it's a little hilarious when we sit down to watch one and we're like, did we see that person? Because, you know, there's only like so many ways you can smuggle in drugs when you're on an airline.
Exactly.
So sometimes we're like, oh, that girl, did we see that girl? No, that was a different girl.
Or that's like one of our favorite officers or something like that, and they appear in multiple shows, and, you know, anyway, it's a fun show to watch, and NatGeo is where that show's on.
Yep.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is one that I know you caught part of, but we thought we'd mention it here too. It's called For the Love of Spock, and I just ordered. This is one that has physical media. It was on Netflix, but I wanted to get the director's cut of it. And this is a documentary about the actor that played Mr. Spock on Star Trek, Leonard Nimoy. And this is one of my favorite documentaries. Again, very rewatchable, about Leonard Nimoy's career and kind of his, you know, participation in the show, and his acting career, his brief singing career, which was kind of funny, and then going through all the movies and going through his love of photography and how he started to direct some of the Star Trek films. For those that don't know it too, and I have, these videos are up on the channel, but Rob from the Movie Vault and I are doing a Star Trek study this year, which will end in December. We're watching all the films in chronological order, and so in April we're going to be talking about Star Trek V. But right now there's a playlist on the channel where we talk about Star Trek 1 through 4, and we're just going through these in chronological order. It's a really fun study, so if you have a chance, you can listen to those, watch those, and listen to those. But for the amount of time you saw this, I know you saw probably most of it, I feel like, or at least half the movie.
I feel like I saw about half. I had been familiar with the subject, and I think there was also maybe like a overlapping episode, like in Big Bang Theory or something, or where Adam Nimoy is in an episode or something. I don't know. So I've known about it. I just didn't see all of it. I think it's really interesting. I really like that Adam is telling the story, like, to shine a light on his father, but then also he talks about how their relationship was and how their relationship was affected by his popularity in Star Trek, and so I thought that was very interesting. And it was nice to see not just his character, but also how people interacted with the character and how he used that as kind of a platform for other things, and seeing his life in between Star Trek and then after, and then seeing him even in the new film that he was in the new Star Trek reboot. And so I think it did a good job of highlighting his whole career and life, and the family elements were nice too.
Yeah, I thought that was good. And, for me, he the documentary provided some insight into Star Trek, the show, and the dynamic between Kirk and Spock. And, kind of the yin and the yang, basically, of, those two characters, right? And also the triumvirate with Bones, Spock, and Kirk. And I think at one point, if I'm remembering the documentary correctly, too, they were talking about how for Kirk, Spock is kind of the angel on the shoulder, and Bones is kind of like the devil, right? So he's got those two opinions going all the time, and the three of them as a triumvirate, as a group of characters, is very interesting, and also how inspirational Spock is with his love of logic, the fact that he's half human, trying to understand his human side of things, the origins of the live long and prosper greeting, and kind of how that came about. It's a very interesting documentary, which I had seen already once before, but watched it again, very rewatchable. And I quickly ordered the physical media. This is one also that you would think potentially could go away, so I wanted to make sure that I have that in my collection along with everything else that I have for Star Trek. So that's what we've been watching this month. We think we might do this hopefully once a month, and we're still going to continue, I think, with My Wife Picks a Criterion, as well as maybe a study of the MCU films, which will probably be starting maybe in the summertime. Usually is when we like to see some blockbusters. So we'll definitely keep you posted on that. But thanks for listening today. We really appreciate it. Leave us a comment below if you've seen any of these shows, or if you have a recommendation for us. I love recommendations on the channel, comments and questions, etc. Anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Like even though I talk a lot about Criterion and different films on the channel, I'm definitely watching those things as well. But we thought it would be interesting just to have a kind of this podcast style to talk about all the other things we're watching. There's so many great things out there. I was kind of surprised as we went over the list this morning of how much is on a streaming service. So as much as this channel is mostly about physical media, it's also about digital media as well, and the streaming channels that we definitely participate in. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting looking at what we've watched over the month to see the themes and the trends, and where we pick up discs and where we watch on streaming. And I know that on the channel, obviously physical media is really important, but I think it is interesting to give a little look into digital watching as well. And it's hard to talk about digital on the channel because you don't have anything physical to show while you're talking about it, right? But yeah, with so many great things on streaming, I'm glad we can use this at least to share some of where we're going. And it's also hard to talk about, like, when you're watching TV, if you haven't finished it all it's hard to sit down and talk about it, right? Like, we haven't finished Twin Peaks season 3, but we can still chat about it a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I would agree. So thanks again. We really appreciate it. And I sincerely hope everyone is safe and well. And we'll talk to you soon.